All right, so welcome back, everybody. We are barreling into towards the end of the semester. Uh, this is the week before Thanksgiving, and so Bluefield State we get entire Thanksgiving week off. I don't know if that's the same at other state universities anymore, but it used to be, and in grade school too, right? So primary education, we get the week off here because it's deer season, right? And I remember my mom telling me they tried to change it a couple times, and the bus drivers always just threatened to go on strike. So we get off for deer season, state of West Virginia. So, intro to impoundments, part two. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the types of dams, how they're constructed, safety concerns surrounding those, the anatomy of a dam, right? What are the parts of a dam, that sort of thing. And this is all going to just lay the foundation for other things we discuss, like coal slurry impoundments, for example, or tailings impoundments. Um, those types of dams. That we studying more in uh, the mineral processing class, as this is significant to the processing side of things. So that I'm Dr. Morgan Sears, and I'm the Director of Mining Engineering Technology at Bluefield State University, where we're lighting the path for the next generation in Appalachian mining education. So how do we engineer impoundments? Uh, Fortunately, MSHIP once again has another handbook in their handbook series called the Dam Inspection and Plan Review Handbook, or as I like to call it, the Dam Handbook. They also have a very lengthy guide on designing coal slurry impoundments, um, and other sorts of tailings dams as well. And that's in a very, very long sort of engineering handbook that I have also included with the class, and some of that's going to be in here as well. So this handbook provides insight into how plans are reviewed and dams are inspected, right? So it sets forth the general procedures for conducting the inspections. So once again, this handbook, as it says, provides MSHIP personnel with procedures, tools, and general guidance for inspecting dams and reviewing plans for dams. Okay, so this is geared towards inspectors, but that doesn't mean that a lot of it, if not most of it, is important to us if we are designing, submitting the plans, or part of maintaining dams, right? So some of the types of dams out there and include the Cross Valley Embankment. This is probably the most common in central Appalachia, right? Because we have a lot of, relatively steep valleys. And this is basically not all that much different than a valley fill, other than it also, impounds water, cold slurry, and then, of course, the dewater fines, right? You can also have a side hill embankment. Remember we talked about side hill fills? You can also have a side hill dam, right? Just kind of like this. And you can have a diked embankment, which is sort of raised above the surface of the soil, and it's flat, right? So kind of if you have flat topography, this is what you'd be looking at. You can construct them either using the downstream method, where if we once again can find our laser pointer, you see that stage one is built here. Stage two then comes out downstream, moves the toe of the slope, right? Stage three does the same thing over again, followed by stage four, which continues this toe of the slope downstream. They can also be constructed upstream. So where you have stage one here, okay, so your first stage of your dam, and then you start impounding water, right? And full slurry or whatever it is. You then add stage two over top of that and push it back, right? And then you start adding water again, right? Back in. And you start adding in stage three, right? Right above that. And that can continue upstream. There's also there's also the centerline method, okay, where you see stage one, and then two is constructed directly over top, three over top that, and then four over top that. So they've all been built on this centerline. You can also have slurry cells or slurry injection, right? So slurry cells are a bit different. You have, the course of refuge is placed, in the fill, and then within those, you have these basically small ponds that you fill with slurry, and then they're eventually covered, right? And so it ends up looking something like this. You can have multiple levels of them. You can have them in areas that are smaller. Um, a lot of times, slurry cells are used if you need a place to store um, cold slurry that you either have a larger impoundment somewhere and you're working on it, or you need some temporary storage, that sort of thing. Um, and then you can also do slurry injection into abandoned mine workings. It's possible to do that. I've worked at a couple of operations that's what they were doing. And you can either do that from the surface, you're pumping it into the mine from the surface, or what we were actually doing is taking that underground and placing it strategically, to make sure that we did, fill the entire mine void. The handbook and engineering guidelines, they cover drainage, right? Water diversion, which you have to do, and sediment control as well. Okay, if you remember when we talked about sediment ponds, right here is one, right here in this drainage area, right? So it also even talks about non-impounding embankments. So valley fills, for example, now they're made if you're doing an upstream construction method like this, where you're coming down here at the bottom and actually compacting this as you go up. Um, and they even talk about slurry cells in strange locations. Remember, so you have this is what a side hill fill that's being constructed in conjunction with slurry cells in it, right? As if you look at the cross section, there's some here. So once again, that's sort of like forgot to turn my phone on. First, got to turn my phone off. My son just arrived at school, so well, that's good. Um, yeah, so you're if you're looking for a place to put a little bit of slurry, like I said, while you're doing some maintenance or working on a power or something like that, you can add them into seemingly strange locations where you wouldn't necessarily consider it. You can also do them, like I said, if the topography is flat, you can do them up on the surface. So, what are the components of a typical slurry impoundment? Um, and in this case, if we start all the way out at the toe, you have a sediment pond here, right? Which you also have groin ditches or drainage ditches here along the sides, right? Sometimes you may also have a center drain as well, or a center drain and yeah. So diversion ditches here, sometimes a center drain. You have the downstream stage of the of the dam. So if you're working on extending downstream, right, you'll be working down here adding coarse refuse material. And if you're working upstream, you'll be working up here. This is the portion that's the most hazardous, right? You have a decant pipe that has an outlet in the dam somewhere. The embankment crest, so the top, currently is here. You're building a new level, but inlet for the decant pipe is over here. And then what if this is cold slurry? What you typically have, you have this settled fine refuse delta, they call it. And yes, near the dam, where so you're pumping in cold slurry and water right here at the crest. What you get is this area that where the coal fines have settled out and they're basically dewatered. Okay. And as you go further this way, you get more and more and more water till back in here the water is actually, it's clear water. And then they have a saddleback dam crest. I guess, what they did was they built a secondary dam here so the water only goes up to this level. It doesn't get back up in here or something like that, I guess. Okay, so, and the impoundment pool itself here is what, the water that's impounded behind this dam. And if we look at that in cross section, okay, once again, you've got your sediment pond down here. You've got what they call the starter dam or the initial, dam itself. Stage one in this case has been conducted downstream with, like I said, drawings for a stage two, both downstream and upstream. So you can construct it either way. There's an underdrain, right? Piezometer, so you're measuring water pressure within the dam itself, okay? Because, all dams leak, right? And in the case of, an earthen dam, water actually filters through the dam all the time, right? It's filtering through here constantly, right? Through all this to get down. You also have the cutoff keyway here. And then in the impoundment itself, right, you have fine refuse deposits. Right? And they're up against the dam, right? They're thicker up here than they are back here in the impoundment pool. And then if you are doing upstream construction, you are then pushing out stage two, coarse refuse on top of the initial fine refuse, right? And so that does present additional safety concerns, right? Typically, what you're doing with upstream construction is you're operating a nice big heavy piece of equipment, right? And you're pushing this out, pushing out the coarse refuse. There have been multiple incidents of equipment ending up in the impound, okay? Dozers, sometimes it's an excavator with a long bucket, something like that. But I'm telling you, when this equipment ends up in here, that's it. I mean, that's the end, right? I mean, it's such a thick material that you can't stop it. It's going to get into that cab, and it's going to take too long to rescue somebody from this situation. I mean, it would be almost impossible, and it would be frankly a miracle if it did occur. But there have been multiple fatalities doing this. So it is very important that you make sure that the foundation you're working on is what it seems like, okay? Is as strong as it seems. All that. Follow all of the safety procedures that you have written into your plan, right? There'll be safety procedures written into the plan that you'll have to follow, and you need to do that. So I'll even tell a little short story about this. So when I was my first job, right, I'm like 20 years old. I'm out surveying on a sediment ditch, and it had sediment in it. It was relatively full, and it looked completely strong and dry to me. So I just walked across it, right? Well, I got about halfway across, and I fell in. And I'm telling this story to my wife, and I'm like, I fell in, and I was immediately up to my waist, and I was like, I had to, sort of lay out flat, right, up on the sediment, to pull myself out, but so I wouldn't break through, right? I was trying to spread out my weight, even the sort of pressure, and I did. I pulled myself out. She was like, "Wait a minute, like you were in quicksand? You're describing quicksand." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I kind of was in quicksand, And she was like, "Well, I thought after watching all those, cartoon shows where they have quicksand, that'd be a whole lot bigger problem than it is. Like, but you're the only person I know that's ever fallen into quicksand." So it is true, and actually, maybe I'm lucky. Right? I don't know. I didn't have a clue what I didn't have a clue I was doing anything wrong. I thought I should be able to walk across there really easily, and it turns out that that's just not accurate. That what looked nice and dry and solid on top was just a hard pan layer, and everything underneath was mush. So, yeah, that's happened to me just on a smaller scale. But yeah, this is definitely a safety concern, particularly for upstream pushouts on boats. So with that, I'm going to close it out there. Like I said, we've laid the foundation for what we're going to be covering when we do talk about impoundments, coal slurry disposal, tailings dams, that sort of thing. When we get into more into mineral processing. And with that, we'll see you next time.